The new recap is here. Today we're going to watch the movie No Hard Feelings. Welcome to Flashback Recap. Hit subscribe and let's dive right in. The film begins with Gary, a tow truck driver, arriving at Maddie Barker's house to repossess her car. Maddie, desperate to keep her vehicle, attempts to appeal to Gary's emotions by reminding him of their past relationship, which ended when she ghosted him. However, her efforts are thwarted when a man she had a one-night stand with the previous evening emerges from her house in his underwear and gropes her. Despite Maddie's protests, Gary proceeds to tow her car away, leaving her without her primary source of income as an Uber driver. Determined to retrieve her car, Maddie rollerblades after Gary and catches up to him as he stops to buy breakfast. She tries to lower the car and drive away, but her clumsy attempt fails as the car is still hooked to the tow truck. Gary raises the car back up, and Maddie faces the consequences of her actions, ending up on probation and learning that she owes a substantial amount in back taxes, putting her at risk of losing her house. In addition to her Uber job, Maddie works as a bartender in Montauk, her lifelong hometown. She works alongside her friend Sarah and frequently spends time with her and her husband Jim. Maddie's boss notes her attitude problem when she argues with a customer who tries to order a drink before the bar officially opens. During a break, Sarah shows Maddie a job listing from a wealthy family seeking someone to date their son before he leaves for college. The family is offering a Buick Regal in exchange for this service. Although Maddie understands that date is a euphemism for sex, she decides to pursue the opportunity, reasoning that she has no other options and wants to take advantage of the rich, especially since they're threatening to take her house. Maddie visits the Becker family's home and meets Percy's parents, Laird and Allison. They discuss their son, who is socially awkward and shy with few friends and spends most of his time playing video games in his room. Despite the age difference between Maddie, 32, and Percy, 19, Maddie convinces Laird and Allison that she is the perfect candidate for the job. However, they emphasize that Percy must not find out about their arrangement. Following Laird and Allison's instructions, Maddie locates Percy at a dog shelter where he works. Dressed in a form-fitting outfit to seduce him, she pretends to be interested in adopting a dog. Percy introduces her to Milo, a former police dog dismissed from the force due to a cocaine addiction. As Maddie comes on too strong, Percy becomes nervous and tries to leave early. Maddie offers him a ride home in Jim's borrowed van. When they arrive at Maddie's house, Percy, feeling threatened, sprays her in the face with mace. Maddie, in pain, explains that she found him attractive, and Percy expresses his desire for a proper date, which Maddie agrees to. Later, Maddie returns the van to Jim and Sarah, admitting that Percy is unfuckable. Maddie takes Percy to a bar where she is familiar with the waitress and orders him a Long Island iced tea, which he dislikes. They encounter Travis, Maddie's ex-boyfriend, who boasts about his marriage, claiming that Maddie leaving him was the best thing that ever happened to him. He warns Percy not to get too attached to her. Later, Maddie and Percy go skinny dipping at the beach. Although hesitant at first, Percy joins her at her encouragement. Soon after, 3 intoxicated teenagers appear and steal their clothes, which contain their wallets, phones, and keys. Maddie, completely naked, confronts the teens and fights them until they return their belongings. Back in the water, Percy expresses his concern about Maddie's behavior. As she starts to leave, Percy, still nude, demands his phone back. When Maddie refuses, he jumps onto the hood of her car and she drives off with him clinging to the vehicle. The police pursue them, but Maddie, fearing the loss of her license, manages to evade them by crossing train tracks just before a train passes. Maddie brings Percy back to her place, attempting to seduce him once more. She performs a provocative dance and encourages him to do the same. However, she notices a rash on his back, which he attributes to anxiety. As Maddie applies lotion to his back, Percy talks about his past. His classmates teased him for sleeping in his parents' bedroom and spread rumors about him, which led to his aversion to socialization. Percy suggests they spend the day together on a proper date, and Maddie agrees. They visit an arcade, win prizes, and get kicked out after Maddie messes with another child. At the lighthouse, Percy asks Maddie for a kiss, and she obliges despite his awkwardness. Maddie confides in him about never leaving Montauk and living in the same house as her mother, as her father provided the house and money to keep them away from him and his new family. They visit Percy's former nanny, Jody, an adult male. Jody suspects something is amiss with Maddie, but she retorts that it's creepy for him to be a male nanny to a teenage boy. Doug Kahn, a former classmate turned realtor, stops by Maddie's house offering to sell it for full price. Maddie declines, still intent on saving her home. Maddie and Percy attend a fancy restaurant for a prom-style date, as they both missed their actual proms. Maddie encourages Percy to play the piano and he performs Man-Eater for the entire restaurant, earning cheers and applause. Maddie is impressed by his talent. Natalie, a girl from Percy's school who is also headed to Princeton, approaches him to offer praise. She invites Percy to a party for Princeton-bound students, but Maddie tries to discourage him from attending, worried he might end up sleeping with Natalie or another girl. Percy insists on going, despite Maddie's objections. At the party, Maddie searches for Percy among the condescending teenagers who consider her too old to be there. She finds him in bed with Natalie, but he is ill from drinking and taking ibuprofen. Maddie attempts to make him vomit, but the parents of the party's host intervene and ask her to leave. Percy tries to defend Maddie, but accidentally punches her in the throat. After leaving the party, Percy expresses his readiness to have sex with Maddie in the limo. However, when he tells her he loves her, Maddie realizes he is too intoxicated and refuses to go. Laird and Allison observe Percy's newfound confidence and extroversion, which he credits to his new girlfriend. Surprisingly, Percy informs them that he no longer plans to attend Princeton, as he wants to remain close to Maddie. Allison contacts Maddie, who is starting to have doubts about the arrangement. Laird assures her that she can keep the car without continuing the relationship to prevent Percy from abandoning his Princeton plans. Regrettably, Percy overhears their conversation while in his parents' car, discovering that Maddie only wanted the car and not to sleep with him, leaving him devastated. Percy invites Maddie to lunch with his parents, where he passive-aggressively drinks their wine before leaving with his co-worker Crispin to vandalize the Buick in the woods. They throw a rock onto the gas pedal, causing the car to crash into a tree, which then falls on top of the vehicle. Upon returning home, Percy and Maddie decide to have sex and get it over with. However, before he can penetrate her, Percy ejaculates on Maddie's thigh. He reveals that he knows everything and no longer wants to see her, predicting that she will remain in Montauk for the rest of her life. Gary later delivers the damaged Buick to Maddie, as her name is on the paperwork. She is compelled to continue her Uber work in the wrecked car, while Percy retreats to his room, playing video games and ignoring Maddie's texts and calls. To repair her car and pay her taxes, celebrating with Jim and Sarah. However, they reveal their plans to move to Florida for their unborn child's sake, as Sarah is pregnant. Maddie is left distraught, realizing she will be alone. Desperate, Maddie reaches out to Doug, accepting his offer to sell her house. She sells it to Jim and Sarah, enabling them to stay and raise their baby while she plans to move to California. Discovering that Percy is at a Princeton mixer, Maddie tries to find him. He refuses to speak to her even as she attempts to explain herself. Mimicking his earlier actions, she jumps onto the hood of his car and he drives off with her hanging on. They end up driving through a beach where Maddie accidentally catches fire from a barbecue grill before Percy drives into the water. Panicked, he searches for Maddie and they tearfully reconcile. After making amends, Maddie informs Percy of her plans to move to California, and he expresses his happiness for her. He also assures her that losing his virginity to her still counts, despite the unconventional circumstances. On the day of his departure for Princeton, Percy bids farewell to Laird and Allison. Maddie arrives to drive him there before she leaves for California, surprising him with the news that she has adopted Milo, the dog from the shelter.